Good morning everyone. Basa na tayo ng Bible guys. 1 Kings chapter 8 and 9 and Luke chapter 21 verse 1 to 19. Basa. The ark brought to the temple. Then King Solomon summoned into his presence at Jerusalem the elders of Israel, all the heads of the tribes and the chiefs of the Israelite families, to bring up the ark of the Lord's covenant from Zion, the city of David. All the men of Israel came together to King Solomon at the time of the festival in the month of Ethanim. In the month of Ethanim, the 7th month. When all the elders of Israel had arrived, the priest took up the ark, and they brought up the ark of the Lord, and the tent of meeting, and all the sacred furnishings in it. The priests and Levites carried him up, and King Solomon and the entire assembly of Israel that had gathered about him were before the ark, sacrificing so many sheep and cattle that they could not be recorded or counted. The priest then brought the ark of the Lord's covenant to its place in the inner sanctuary of the temple, the most holy place, and put it beneath the wings of the cherubim. The cherubim spread their wings over the place of the ark and overshadowed the ark and its carrying poles. These poles were so long, and their ends could be seen from the holy place in front of the inner sanctuary, but not from outside the holy place, and they are still there today. Wow! Up to now daw nandoon pa rin. Pero paano natin makikita yan? Napakalayo natin sa kanila. There was nothing, lalo pa ngayon. Wala na tayong biyahe. Wala nang flight. Ay, ewan ko lang kung papunta doon sa Israel kung mayroon. There was nothing in the ark except the 2 stones. Pero ngayong panahon ng COVID-19, babiyahe ka pa ba? May stuck ka lang sa quarantine, diba? So, huwag ka nang bumiyahe. Kaya hindi na natin ito makikita, itong sinasabi rito. There was nothing in the ark except the 2 stone tablets that Moses had placed in it at Horeb, where the Lord. Yung ano pa pala ito ni Moses. There was nothing in the ark except the 2 stone tablets. Yung 10 commandments to God. Yung mga commandments to ni Moses, guys. That Moses had placed in it at Horeb, where the Lord made a covenant with the Israelites after they came out of Egypt. Yung 40 days and 40 nights niya to doon sa When the priest withdrew from the holy place, the cloud filled the temple of the Lord, and the priests could not perform their service because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled his temple. Sa verse 12, guys. Then Solomon said, "The Lord has said that he would dwell in a dark cloud. I have indeed built a magnificent temple for you, a place for you to dwell forever." While the whole assembly of Israel was standing there, the king turned around and blessed them. Then he said, "Praised be the Lord, the God of Israel, who with his own hand has fulfilled that he promised with his own mouth to my father David. For he said, since the day I brought my people Israel out of Egypt, I have not chosen a city in any tribe of Israel to have a temple built for my name to be there, but I have chosen David to rule my people Israel. My father David had it in his heart to build a temple for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. But the Lord said to my father David, because it was in your heart to build a temple for my name, you did well to have this in your heart. Nevertheless, you are not the one to build the temple, but your son, who is your own flesh and blood. He is the one who will build the temple for my name. Ang galing. The Lord has kept the promise He made. I have succeeded David my father, and now I sit on the throne. Before ikaw, King Solomon, mayroon ka pang kapatid na nag-declare sa kanyang sarili maging hari. Pero ikaw pa rin pinili ni Father God maging hari. I have succeeded David my father, and now I sit on the throne of Israel just as the Lord promised, and I have built the temple for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. I have provided a place there for the ark, in which is the covenant of the Lord that He made with our fathers when He brought them out of Egypt. Alam mo guys, hindi pa ako nakakapagpasukat ng mata, kaya lalong hirap yung mata ko ngayon. Yung salamin ba nasira kasi. So kahit na hindi nasira pang long distance, talaga yung ganyan. Ito naman baliktad, kailangan mo ilapit. Reading good. Ulitin nga natin sa 25. Nalito na ako kung saan ako minto. Now, Lord God of Israel, keep for your servant David, my father, the promises you made to him, when you said, you shall never fail to have a man to sit before me on the throne of Israel, if only your sons are careful. Oh. 24 muna tayo. Balikan muna natin yung 24. You have kept your promise to your servant David, my father. With your mouth you have promised, and with your hand you have fulfilled it, as it is today. Mali guys. Na ano na ako. Hindi ko natin nabasa yung Balik tayo sa 20. Hindi pa natin nabasa yung sumunod sa succeeded, diba? Balik tayo sa verse 20 ng first 1 Kings chapter 8. Basa. The Lord has kept the promise He made. I have succeeded. Pumipiyok pa. The Lord has kept the promise He made. I have succeeded David my father, and now I sit on the throne of Israel, just as the Lord promised, and I have built the temple for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. I have provided a place there for the ark, in which is the covenant of the Lord that He made with our fathers when He brought them out of Egypt. Solomon's prayer of dedication, verse 22 guys. Then Solomon stood before the altar of the Lord in front of the whole assembly of Israel, spread out his hands toward heaven, and said, O Lord God of Israel, there is no God like you in heaven above or on earth below. You who keep your covenant of love with your servants who continue wholeheartedly in your way. You have kept your promise to your servant David, my father, with your mouth. You have promised, and with your hand you have fulfilled it, as it is today. Now, Lord God of Israel, keep of your servant David, my father, the promises you made to him, when you said, you shall never fail to have a man to sit before me on the throne of Israel, if only your sons are careful in all they do to walk before me as you have done. And now, O God of Israel, let your word that you promised your servant David, my father, come true. But will God really dwell on earth? The heavens, even the highest heaven, cannot contain you. How much less this temple I have built? Yet give attention to your servant's prayer and his plea for mercy, O Lord my God. Hear the cry and the prayer that your servant is praying in your presence this day. May your eyes be open toward this temple. Night and day, this place of which you said my name shall be there, so that you will hear the prayer your servant prays toward this place. Hear the supplication of your servant and of your people Israel when they pray toward this place. Hear from heaven your dwelling place, and when you hear, forgive. When a man wrongs his neighbor and is required to take an oath. Wait lang guys, sa 31 tayo ha. Yun muna. Natuloy ko ngayon ako. Sakit. Sa 31. When a man wrongs his neighbor and is required to take an oath, and he comes and swears the oath before your altar in this temple, then hear from heaven, and act. Just between your servants, condemning the guilty and bringing down on his own head what he has done. Declare the innocent not guilty, and so establish his innocence. When your people Israel have been defeated by an enemy because they have sinned against you, and when they turn back to you and confess your name, praying and making supplication to you in this temple, then hear from heaven and forgive the sin of your people Israel, and bring them back to the land you gave to their fathers. When the heavens are shut up and there is no rain because your people have sinned against you, and when they pray toward this place and confess your name, and turn from their sin because you have afflicted them, then hear from heaven and forgive the sin of your servants, your people Israel. Teach them the right way to live, and send rain on the land you gave your people for an inheritance. When famine or plague comes to the land, or blight or mildew, locust or grasshoppers, or when an enemy besieges them in any of their cities, whatever disaster or disease may come, and when a prayer or plea is made by any of your people Israel, each one aware of the applications of his own heart, and spreading out his hands toward this temple, then hear from heaven your dwelling place. Yes, God, pagalingin mo na yung aming COVID-19, please. Forgive and act, deal with its man according to all. Kahit hindi tayo taga-Israelites, guys, apektado tayo ng COVID-19, di ba? So, hingi din tayo ng na pagalingin na tayo. Nakalagay dito, then hear from heaven your dwelling place. Forgive and act, deal with each man according to all he does. Forgive and act, deal with each man according to all he does, since you know his heart, for you alone know the hearts of all men, so that they will fear you all the time they live in the land you gave our fathers. Ang swerte ng mga taga-Israel na nakikita pa nila itong temple up to now. So, verse 41. Ang haba ng chapter 8, guys, promise. Hanggang verse, 66? Yes. Hanggang verse 66. Nandito pa lang tayo sa 41. As for the foreigner who does not belong to your people Israel, but has come from a distant land because of your name, for men will hear of your... Ang kati ng kilay ko. Sa 41 guys So ng 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 41. As for the foreigner who does not belong to your people Israel, but has come from a distant land because of your name, for men will hear of your great name and your mighty hand and your outstretched arm when he comes and prays toward this temple. Then hear from heaven your dwelling place and do whatever the foreigner asks of you. So kahit na sana hindi tayo pumunta doon, pakinggan pa rin sana yung ating mga panalangin guys. Nakalagay kasi dito, when he comes and prays toward this temple. Paano tayo makarating doon? Hindi, mang layo-layo natin, diba? So, nawa kahit wala kami dyan, dinggin mo pa rin yung aming panalangin, Father God. Then hear from heaven your dwelling place and do whatever the foreigner asks of you, so that all the peoples of the earth may know your name and fear you, as do your own people Israel. Gawin nga natin tong description guys. Verse 41 hanggang hanggang 43. Ito. Then hear from heaven your dwelling place and do whatever the foreigner asks of you, so that all the people of the earth, so all the peoples of the earth may know your name and fear you, as to your own people Israel, and may know that this house I have built bears your name. Verse 44. When your people go to war against their enemies wherever you send them, and when they pray to the Lord toward in the city you have chosen, and the temple I have built for your name, then hear from heaven their prayer and their plea, and uphold their cause. Verse 46. When they sin against you, for there is no one who does not sin, and you become angry with them and give them... ito na lang gawin natin description. Sa 46. Ang hirap kasi mag-type kaya kukuha lang tayo ng maiksi. When they sin against you, for there is no one who does not sin, and you become angry with them, and give them over to the enemy who takes them captive to his own land, far away or near. And if they have a change of heart in the land where they are held captive and repent and plead. Ayaw kong kunin to. Balik tayo doon sa 41 mamaya. Yun na lang kunin natin. Lagyan ko na nga ng description. Yung 41 na lang gawin natin. Mas maganda. Oh, 44. So, 46. When they sin against you, so, ang gawin natin description guys is yung 41 to 43. When they sin against you, for there is no one who does not sin, and you become angry, with them, and give them over to the enemy who takes them captive to his own land, far away or near. And if they have a change of heart in the land where they are held captive, and repent and plead with you in the land of their conquerors, and say, we have sinned, we have done wrong, we have acted wickedly, and if they turn back to you with all their heart and soul in the land of their enemies who took them captive, and pray to you toward the land you gave their fathers, toward the city you have chosen, and the temple I have built for your name, then from heaven your dwelling place heard their prayer. Amen. And their plea, and uphold their cause, and forgive your people who have sinned against you. Forgive all the offenses they have committed against you, and cause their conquerors to shew the mercy, guys, bilis na. For they are your people and your inheritance, whom you brought out of Egypt, out of the iron smelting furnace. May your eyes, sa 52, may your eyes be open to your servants' plea and to the plea of your people Israel, and may you listen to them whenever they cry out to you. For you singled them out from all the nations of the world to be your own inheritance. Kaya nga guys, parang nakakaselos, diba? Sila lang talaga. For you singled them out from all the nations of the world to be, sa 53. From the nations of the world to be your own inheritance, just as you declared through your servants Moses when you, O sovereign Lord, brought our fathers out of Egypt. It's so unfair, diba? Sila lang talaga. Paano tayo? When Solomon had finished all these prayers and supplications, the Lord arose from before the altar of the Lord, where he had been kneeling with his hands spread out toward heaven. He stood and blessed. Reaction ko lang yun, guys, ha. Siyempre, magsiselos tayo talaga kasi nga sa dinami-dami ng bansa, sila lang talaga ang pinagpala. So, how about us? Napakarami din natin, di ba? When Solomon had finished all his prayers, reaction lang yun. When Solomon had finished all these prayers and supplications to the Lord, he rose from before the altar of the Lord, where he had been kneeling with his hands spread out toward heaven. He stood and blessed the whole assembly of Israel in a loud voice, saying, Praise be the Lord, praise be to the Lord, who has given rest to his people Israel. I just as he promised, not one word has failed of all the good promises he gave through his servant Moses. May the Lord our God be with us as he was with our fathers. May he never leave us, not forsake us. May he turn our hearts to him to walk in all his ways and to keep the commands, decrees, and regulations he gave our fathers. And may these words of mine, which I have read before the Lord, be near to the Lord our God day and night, that he may uphold the cause of his servant and the cause of his people Israel according to its day's need, so that all the peoples of the earth may know that the Lord is God, and there is no other. Paano namin kayo nga lang ang sininggle out ni Father God na chosen one. But your hearts must be fully committed to the Lord our God, to live by his decrees and obey his commands at this time. Dedication of the temple. Then the king and all Israel with him offered sacrifices before the Lord. Solomon offered a sacrifice of fellowship offerings to the Lord, 22,000 cattle. 22,000? Grabe naman. Ang dami. And 120,000 sheep and goats. Grabe. So, 22K plus 120K. $142. Grabing dami, guys. The dedication of the temple, balikan niyo sa verse 62. Then the king and all Israel with him offered sacrifices before the Lord. Solomon offered a sacrifice of fellowship offerings to the Lord, 22,000 cattle and 120,000 sheep and goats. So the king and all the Israelites dedicated the temple of the Lord. On the same day, the king consecrated the middle part of the courtyard in front of the temple of the Lord, and there he offered burnt offerings, grain offering. Hindi ko pala napatay yung enter niya. On the same day, the king consecrated the middle part of the courtyard in front of the temple of the Lord, and there he offered burnt offerings, grain offerings, and the fat of the fellowship offerings, because the bronze altar before the Lord was too small to hold the burnt offerings, the grain offering, and the fat of the fellowship offerings. So Solomon observed the festival at the time, and all Israel with him, a vast assembly people from Lebo Hamath to the Wadi of Egypt. They celebrated it before the Lord our God for 7 days, and 7 days more, 14 days in all. On the following day he sent the people away. They blessed the king, and they went home joyful and glad in heart for all the good things the Lord had done for his servant David and his people Israel. Solomon's greatness and downfall. The Lord appears to Solomon. So chapter 9, guys. When Solomon had finished building the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, and had achieved all he had desired to do, the Lord appeared to him a second time, as he had appeared to him at Gibeon. The Lord said to him, I have heard the prayer and plea you have made before me. I have consecrated this temple which you have built by putting my name there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. As for you, if you walk before me in integrity of heart and uprightness, as David your father did, and do all I command and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish I will establish your royal throne over Israel forever, as I promised David your father when I said, you shall never fail to have a man on the throne of Israel. So verse 6. But if you or your sons turn away from me and do not observe the commands and decrees I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land I have given them, and I will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. Israel will then become a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. Ay, pumipiyak na tayo. Painom ulit. Akala ko pinatay ko yung internet. May pumasok ng text. But if you or your sons turn away from me and do not observe the commands and decrees I have given you, parang nabasa na natin to, guys. But if you, sa verse 6, but if you or your sons turn away from me and do not observe the commands and decrees I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land. Inulit nga natin. I have given them, and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. Israel will then become a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now imposing, all who pass by will be appalled and will scoff and say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? People will answer, because they have forsaken the Lord their God, who brought their father out of Egypt, and have embraced their other gods, worshipping and serving them. That is why the Lord brought all this disaster on them. So, ibig sabihin, Father God, itong COVID-19, dahil sa pagsamba sa ibang Diyos-Diyosan, is it? Solomon other activities. At the end of 20 years, during which Solomon built these two buildings, the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, King Solomon gave 20 towns in Galilee to Hiram, king of Tyre, because Hiram had supplied him with all the cedar and pine and gold he wanted. At the end of 20 years, guys, during which Solomon built these two buildings, the temple of the Lord royal palace, King Solomon gave 20 towns. So, binigay niya ang 20 towns sa Galilee doon kay Hiram, sa king of Tyre. Because Hiram had supplied him with all the cedar and pine and gold he wanted. But when Hiram went from Tyre to see the towns that Solomon had given him, but when Hiram, but ayaw man. Ay, grabe siya. Ayaw sa ibang page. He was not pleased with them. Oh, ayaw pa ng 22 towns. Ay, ng 20 towns. He was not pleased with them. What kind of towns are these you have given me, my brother? He asked, and he called them the land of Kabul, a name they have to this day. Now Hiram has sent to the king 120 talents of gold. Here is the account of the first labor King Solomon conscripted to build the Lord's temple, his own place, the supporting terraces. The wall of Jerusalem and Hazor, Megiddo and Gezer. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had and captured Gezer. Oh, ayan na naman sila. So, na-capture ng Egypt yung Gezer. He had set it on fire. He called it a Canaanite inhabitants, and then gave it as a wedding gift to his daughter, Solomon's wife. Oh! Talaga lang, sila talaga nag-aaway. Hindi, tinawid ko niyo pa ako, nangangalay na ako. Ilang oras na ba? 31 minutes na pala tayo dito. Sabi ko sa inyo, napakabagal ko magbasa eh. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had attacked and captured Gezer. He had set it on fire. He called its Canaanite inhabitants and then gave it as a wedding gift to his daughter, Solomon's wife. And Solomon rebuilt Gezer. He built up Lower Beth Horon, Baalath, and Tadmor in the desert within his land, as well as all his store cities and the towns for his chariots and for his horses. Whatever he desired to build in Jerusalem and Lebanon, and throughout all the territory he ruled. Oh. Susakop niya yung Jerusalem, Lebanon. In Lebanon. Ang likot ko kasi nangangalay eh. Sa verse 20. All the people fled from the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. These peoples were not Israelites. That is, their descendants remaining in the land whom the Israelites could not exterminate. This Solomon conscripted for his slave labor force as it is to this day. Kawawa naman. Alam mo ba yung mga original na yung nakatira noon, pinaalis nila kasi ginera. This Solomon conscripted for his slave labor force as it is to this day. But, sa 22 guys. But Solomon did not make slaves of any of the Israelites. They were his fighting men, his government officials, his officers, his captains, and the commanders of his chariots and charioteers. These were also the chief officials in charge of Solomon projects, 550 officials supervising the men who did the work. After Pharaoh's daughter had come up from the city of David to the palace Solomon had built for her, he constructed the supporting terraces. 3 times a year Solomon sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings on the altar he had built for the Lord, burning incense before the Lord along with him, and so fulfilled the temple obligations. King Solomon also built ships of Ezion-Geber, which is near Elath in Edom, on the shore of the Red Sea, and Hiram sent these men sailors who knew the sea to serve in the fleet with Solomon's men. They sailed to Ophir, and brought back 420 talents of gold, which they delivered to King Solomon. Mga gold. So, dito na tayo. Sa Luke 21 verse 1 to 19. Basa. A poor widow gives all she has. As he looked up, Jesus saw the rich putting their gifts into the temple treasury. He also saw a poor widow put into 2 very small copper coins. I tell you the truth, he said. This poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these people gave their gifts out of their wealth, but she out of her poverty put in all she had to live on. Lagi talaga nilang kinakampihan ang mahihirap. Jesus tells about the future. Some of the disciples were remarking about how the temple was adorned with beautiful stones. Kaya lang guys, no comment. Jesus tells about the future. Some of his disciples were remarking. Kasi, kung lagi niyong kinakampihan ng di wala nang gustong maging mayaman. Kasi lagi na lang dito. Pag nagbigay yung mayaman, parang hindi satisfied. Yung kasi mas pinapaboran yung mahirap kasi binigay daw lahat. Diba? Poor widow put into 2 very small copper coins. I tell you the truth, he said. This poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these people gave their gifts out their wealth, but she out of her poverty put in all she had to live on. Jesus tells about the future. Some of his disciples were remarking about how the temple was adorned with beautiful stones and with gifts dedicated to God. But Jesus said, as for what you see here, the time will come when not one stone will be left on another. Every one of them will be thrown down. Teacher, they asked, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign that they are about to take place? He replied, Watch out that you are not deceived. For many will come in my name, claiming I am he, and the time is near. Do not follow them. When you hear of wars and revolutions, do not be frightened. These things must happen first, but the end will not come right away. Then he said to them, Nations will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilence in various places, and fearful events, and great signs from heaven. Excuse me. But before all this, they will lay hands on you and persecute you. They will deliver you to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors, and all on account of my name. This will result in your being witnesses to them. But make up your mind not to worry beforehand how you will defend yourselves, for I will give you words and wisdom that none of your adversaries will be able to resist or contradict. You will be betrayed even by parents, brothers, relatives, and friends, and they will put some of you to death. All men will hate you because of me, but not... Wala na guys, tapos na tayo. Final na yung pangalawa na ngayon. All men will hate you because of me, but not a hair of your head will perish. By standing firm, you will gain life. Okay guys, hanggang dyan na lang. Hanggang verse 19 lang tayo. Bye everyone, God bless.